guys. This is Nick. In the name of the FC Schalke Mafia team, I want to congratulate you on your 100th episode. Thanks for supporting us in the US, and hopefully there will be many more episodes of your podcast in the future. Glück auf!
Ball still in play. Oh, what a goal! What a magnificent, absolutely stupendous strike from Kevin Kharman. Moravec through the roll. Lovely chip ball. 4-1 Schalke.
Blau und Weiß sein Leben lang. Hallo meine Leute. Willkommen zum das einzige Schalke Podcast auf English. That's right, folks. Officially the world's only English Schalke podcast worldwide. This is episode 102 of SchalkeMerica. I'm your host, Richard Kharman. This podcast aims to bring you the latest from the Royal Blues, talk to the English-speaking fans of the club, get their point of view across, and bring you game highlights. As always, joining me on the show is Jack Mangan. How are we doing tonight?
You know, Richard, there's a lot of things you can say about this Schalke team. You know what you can't say?
What's that?
Can't say they don't earn points. We're on the board, baby.
We're on the board. And I'll drink to that, man.
You know what? I'll drink to that as well. I mean, now, granted, we're celebrating a home draw to Union Berlin, which shows you how far we have fallen. But you know what? You got to take what you get. And I think this was a slight improvement in terms of the performance we saw, which we will get into, and it's something that we can build off of. Now, obviously, we're going to be going into the Dortmund match here next, which is not going to be an easy one, but this is basically what we wanted, right? We said Manuel Baum's going to have the international break to get some work in with this team, and then we'll see how we look against Union Berlin. And what we said was we just want to see a halfway decent performance that shows that there's something going on there, and I think we got that today. Would you agree?
I agree. It certainly is an improvement, and we'll get into that. But we wanted to see fight. I mean, that's the only thing we wanted, and we'll get to what we can talk about the Ultras right now, because the Ultras actually met with the team after the match, and basically they said, okay, that was okay, better performance. We need to see that and more against the Derby, because that's a whole nother level. And if you don't, we're going to see you next week. So I guess it's motivation or threatening, but there has been improvements, and the team is fighting now. And yeah, that's all we're asking is this fight and at least make an attempt to look like you want to play out there, like you have passion. We've seen that finally. I think it's getting there. It's better than it has been.
I mean, plenty to work on still. Yeah. And a lot of areas where we're still weak and we were not impressive today, and we'll talk about those. But at the end of the day, it's a result. And it's a result where there's a couple specific things that seem to be better than what we've been seeing recently. So, that's all we can ask for coming out of the international break, and we go from here.
So tonight, we're both drinking, we're celebrating, and it's a long way from where we have been. So I've got my little Four Roses, because it's kind of sad that we're celebrating at one point. What are you drinking tonight?
Some Elijah Craig at the moment.
Actually. Oh, nice. Okay. All right. Well, let's get into the news, Jack. Well, first things first, if you haven't done so yet, sign up for the Schalke US newsletter. Not only are you going to get info on the club, but you get the latest on all the local fan clubs across North America. Stay to the latest on that, and also get updates on our podcast as well. So let's get into the news real quick before we get into the previews. Really quick here. First, Can Bazdowan, he gets an extension to 2024. Happy about this move?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you and I would probably agree that outside of Ahmed Kitucu, Bazdowan is probably the young player that's recently come through the Knappensschmiede that we're probably most excited about. Still hasn't had too many opportunities to show us what he's capable of, but I think the things we like about him are that in general, for his age, he's pretty composed on the ball, decent passer, decent in possession. Yeah. Able to affect things going forward in the final third a little bit as well. Not trying to overstate that, but can do some things in the final third. So
yeah,
absolutely, yeah. So to get an extension with him, it is nice, especially everything that's going on with the club. It's nice to lock in some of these guys while we can, so that we're not at risk of losing any more people on free transfers. We've talked about that enough on this podcast. So yeah, I'm very pleased with it.
Yep. No, me too. I'm happy that we're actually now extending players, signing players, as opposed to, trying to lose them on a free. So we got it for another 3-4 years now. So I'm happy. I'm really thrilled about that. Next bit of info, Mark Uth was injured before the match, so he didn't get to play against Union Berlin. Obviously, he was starting to come into form. We saw in the test spiel against Paderborn, got the hat trick there. He's starting to come into Baum's system, how he wants to use him, but it's an untimely injury for him. Hopefully, it's nothing too serious because big derby matchup this weekend.
Yeah, well, prior to today, he was our only goal scorer in the Bundesliga, so I guess by default, it's a big loss. If you want to look at it that way. Yeah, but I mean, he's somebody who's, he's being given a second chance right now, and we're still optimistic that he can be an important figure for him to to go down right as he's about to have his first home match under Baum is unfortunate. Hopefully, he's back in the lineup soon.
Yep. And before we get to the next bit of news, just going to give a shout out to people in the chat. Gaird's in here, says Gluka outfit will get better. I agree. I hope so too. Joseph's in the house, says derby mode is on. Let's upset Doofmund. Matt's on. He says it's a come from behind result 2. That's an extra positive. I'll take that. Doug's in the house. What's up, Doug? Long time no see. What, a week? All right, next bit of news. Let's see. So, an article came out by Kicker. We'll go really quickly to this because we don't have much information. I actually did a video recently for the SchalkeMerica podcast or on the YouTube page about the outsourcing. Joachim Schneider and Alexander Jobs came out and said, Schalke are looking at possibly outsourcing the club in a way that Bayern does it, sort of, but not exactly their model. They want to keep the tradition of the club going. What are your initial thoughts? Because we know nothing. We know nothing really right now. So we'll deep dive into this later when we get more info from them. But for now, initial reaction.
Yeah, so it's exactly what you said. Until we have more concrete details regarding what the plan looks like or what an initial draft of the plan looks like, I don't have a whole lot to comment on it because I don't want to judge it before I see it.
Yeah.
My assumption would be that majority of Schalke supporters would probably be at a minimum highly skeptical of anything like this, restructuring the club in that way. But, once again, we have to wait until it actually comes out. And then, who knows, maybe we'll be surprised and people will be more open to it than I would think. But, they clearly think that this is necessary given the state the club's in at the moment. And I guess the question is whether or not we think we can survive. And if we are able to survive in the Bundesliga, whether or not we're okay with performances kind of in line with this, maybe for a couple of seasons, if we're not able to invest in the squad until we're able to turn things around, or if we're trying to maybe take a shortcut. But it's possible that, we've heard existential crisis, phrases like that thrown out before. So it's possible that the hierarchy is viewing this not as an option, but potentially an imperative in order to ensure survival for the club.
Yeah. Schalke Nation are no doubt about it, upset about this because we want to keep with our traditional roots. But it does seem like with the times, it may be inevitable that this will have to happen. And whatever variation this is, we're going to wait to see what the head people at Schalke say. But until we get more information, I think it's going to be just to sit back and stew about it until we get more clarity on it, I guess. So, and then, speaking of being, pissed off, really quickly, the derby match with the U19s were today. Dortmund had this fantastic youngster, 15 years old, freaking has a hat trick. Even Erling Haaland said, I've never seen anybody. I wasn't even this good when I was his age. This kid's got so many goals. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is he was racially abused during the game. That's unacceptable, without a doubt. Hope they find this person, ban him for life. I don't throw him in jail. I don't give a shit. That's bullshit and does not belong in not only in sport, but in life in general, Jack.
Yeah, unequivocal condemnation on our side, and so we feel for this young man. We apologize on behalf, I think, of all Schalke supporters for what he had to experience. But from the Schalke perspective, the last thing we need at the moment, especially in light of the attention the Black Lives Matter movement has gotten in the sporting world. We're still seeing teams take a knee before kickoff sometimes, and then also in light of the racism scandal with Clemens Tönnies last year, the idea that anybody affiliated with Schalke would think that this would ever be a good thing to do, but especially so right now is pretty shocking and pretty absurd. So disappointed to hear that took place, and hopefully we're able to figure out who was responsible and take appropriate action, because we need to nip that in the bud as soon as possible.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, let's no easy way to transition out of this, but let's we did play a match against Union Berlin. Obviously, like we just came out of the international break, Jack. Not much going on. There was the test spiel against Paderborn. We did look very good, actually, in that matchup, 5-1 victory. But this is obviously the Bundesliga. This is where it counts. This is where it matters. An interesting game. Before we get into the game, the lineups real quick. Nothing too surprising, I guess. Frederick Renault in goal. Kilian Ludwig had played very well in the Paderborn match. He started right back with Salif Sane, Nastasic in the middle with Chipka on the left. In the middle, you had his formation was more of probably to start the game, probably a 4-2-3-1, and then kind of shifted to a 4-1-4-1. In midfield, you had Bentaleb, Mascarell, Chan Bazduan, and then you also had Skripski, Rahman, and up top you had Ibisevic. Initial thoughts on the lineup?
I was surprised by it, honestly. There was a couple names in there that I wouldn't have expected to be getting the start. Now, is that in part a result of the international break? And there's a couple people that maybe are tired from that and he wanted to give them some rest, / he was working with a couple of these guys that weren't off on international duty. And so they were the ones that were most actively getting instruction from him in that break. So maybe that's why the selection was there. But yeah, I mean, to see Ibisevic, Skripski, and Benito Rahman all starting together was not what I would have expected. And then as for the shape, right when Manuel Baum got hired, you and I talked on the podcast about how if you look back at his previous time, the 4-2-3-1 is a formation that he favored quite a bit. And so we were wondering if we were going to see that applied, but the reason we were skeptical is that there aren't a lot of natural wingers in this Schalke squad. And so there's these sort of holes on the wings where you would kind of need people to slot in, and there's not really natural fits. Robbie Matano is probably the closest thing to that. You could get away with calling Benito Rahman a winger, but I'm not entirely convinced. Certainly I wouldn't call Skripski a winger. So outside of those guys, it's like, who would you put there? But he went with it. And then, as you said, in possession, even in the first half, people were talking about a shift in the second half. Even in the first half, I thought in possession, it switched to more of a 4-1-4-1 where Mascarell drops a little bit deeper. And then, the 8 that would be the other holding midfielder pushes up and combines with, that center attacking mid player, and they form sort of dual 8s in support of the striker. That was happening, throughout the entire game, which was interesting. So, we'll have to see if he continues to use that. I thought there were things that I liked about it. And the one thing I will say in terms of the selection of Rahman and Skripski is, even though I'm skeptical about what they can add offensively, I think they both put in serious shifts and covered a lot of ground and added a lot in terms of the ball pressure in this game, which is important because if you can't affect things from the winger position offensively as much as you'd like, you at least need to be contributing defensively. And I think they did that for sure.
Yeah, and with the formation, you're right. I think throughout the first half, you saw it kept going from a 4-2-3-1 to 4-1-4-1. It's certainly when they had the ball and were in the attack, they moved up to the 4-1-4-1. Defensively, they tried to be a little bit more stout, having that 4-2-3-1. But then second half, they they took the chance, especially when they went down a goal. It's like, what else you got to lose? Might as well put all the chips in the basket there. As far as the lineup, I should say. I wasn't too surprised about the lineup. The one thing I was surprised, and maybe not so much, is Harit being omitted from the starting lineup. I know he's coming off an injury, right? So probably don't want to push him.
It's COVID.
COVID. That's right. COVID. So maybe even less reason why he didn't start. So I'm not sure about that. But looking at that test spiel, Rahman was really good in that game and playing that left wing. So I got that. Ibisevic looked good. So I got that. Skripski. You probably could have had better options, I think, but he didn't look terrible. I mean, of all the guys in the against Paderborn, he probably looked the worst. So that was a head scratcher for me. I agree with that, but it took him 68 minutes to get into the game before he finally did something, and it kind of led to the goal, which we'll get to. But overall, it was an interesting lineup. But I think most of all, I'm excited about Ludwig. We're gonna lose him, I guess, because he's alone, but he's been playing well, and he added a lot of Kenny-esque type. Ball pressure, pushing up the field, keeping the ball moving. It was very lively in that first half and all game long. And it was nice change of speed, nice change of pace there, Jack.
Yeah, I don't know if we've seen enough of him to be able to judge exactly what he can contribute while he's on the ball. But I do think the work rate was there, and there are some Kenny Ask attributes, I should say. And then like a similar profile of player. And I don't think he did anything in this match in particular that made me, really take note and say, wow, that was really good. But
he's also far ahead of Rudy. I mean,
I also didn't notice him getting caught out that often, and I thought, he was contributing in several different areas of the pitch at various times. So I was totally fine with his performance, and I thought he slotted in quite well.
Took a big old swig there, Jack. Trying to feeling that one. So this game, what we wanted to see an improvement from the last game. It's really burning my throat right now. So the Testspiel, we saw some good things, and we wanted to see that relay into the Bundesliga. I'm really, man, do not do this during live podcast ever again. Anyway, so the team, what we want to see some fight, some hustle, and I think we saw that, Jack. It was not to the level we want by any stretch, but I think it's certainly the best we've seen in a long time from this club, from the starting 11. And that's a positive you have to take away. The first half, though, as the game went on, Union started taking more and more control of the game. I think we were fighting for loose balls. I mean, Jake says right here, Rahman worked his ass off all game long, and a lot of the players did, going for loose balls. And that's what we're asking for, is try. Just do something. Go for the damn ball. Don't just sit there and take things as they come.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying, is I thought Benito Rahman and Skripski both put in a shift on the wings and really contributed. And right from the first whistle, we saw significantly higher ball pressure than we've seen recently from Schalke, really getting all the way up basically to the opponent's box at times, pressuring the ball that far. I thought the presence of those double eights was useful in the pressing as well, because it allowed you to get, if the ball's funneled out to the left back, it allows you to get, the striker, one of those eights, and the right winger all closing in, and that seemed to be effective at times. So I mean, I think there were things. We looked a little bit more organized. It looked slightly more intentional. The players seemed to be buying in, and it wasn't perfect, but we saw some positives.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned the pressing. I think the pressing is a lot more evident in this game than it had been, the previous game with Baum or any of the first two games under Wagner. So that certainly has increased, and we talked about this when Baum was hired, that other than the 4-2-3-1, he likes to press and try to cause turnovers, make the opposition feel uneasy, and I think we saw that, Jack. And then it's an interesting note that during the game, a friend of the show, James Thurgood, is talking about how Mark Uth, during the winter break, or excuse me, the international break, he was saying during practices, Baum was saying, no one could pass back to the defender or to the goalkeeper. Figure it out yourselves amongst the players. Look for other options, but don't give it to the goalkeeper. And in a way, it's trying to say, giving you confidence and let's attack. Don't just play defensively so much, because we need to see some positivity. And I think that's we saw a little bit of that in the game.
It's unfortunate that he's having to, resort to that with professionals.
Yeah.
That seems like maybe something you would do with younger players. Like, all right, you're not allowed to do this, whatever. But I like it, and I think it's probably necessary. But honestly, there's still too many times in this match where I don't think in possession we were shifting the ball side to side quick enough, moving fast enough off the ball. So there's definitely some urgency that needs to improve. And there's still times where there's a couple back passes and then just a long ball when I think we should try harder to make something happen centrally through the midfield rather than playing it backwards or dumping it long. And there's a couple notable examples of that and one of them was actually Bosdowan, where I was annoyed with the decision that was made. But once again, it's sort of from the overall picture. I think there's still a few positives. I mean, offensively we're not good, and we're not getting the ball into the final third enough. I think our XG for this game was like 0.25, and we're still not finishing matches with a significant number of shots, and we're not creating a lot of opportunities. So that's something to work on. And maybe it starts with some of those things that Baum is doing in training, like taking away some safety nets and encouraging some more creative approaches, I should say.
Yeah. No, and some of the things I didn't like either. I noticed that Benito Rahman was not really taking Trimmel one-on-one. Yeah, Trimmel was pressing him a lot every time he got the ball, but still, you'd like to see that one-on-one. He's got the pace for that. Speaking of pace, the club lacks pace, and you were mentioning the passing was not fast enough at times, and yeah, when you're slow of foot, you need to pick up the pace on the passing. That's the only way you're going to beat somebody is those quick passes, tic-tac kind of passes, try to beat the defense, because you're not going to beat them with pace. And, with Ramon being pretty much the only guy that has any kind of speed in that starting lineup, you want to see more of that, more faster pace, faster passing, I should say. There wasn't enough of that, but it was an improvement. We went into halftime 0-0, feeling good about ourselves in the sense that we didn't give up a goal in the first half, which has been notorious for us. But overall, I think it was a decent first half. It was certainly an improvement from what we've seen this season. What were your takeaways of that first half?
Yeah, when the first half whistle blew, I don't think any of us were saying, that is just horrible football that we just watched.
Correct. Which we had been previously saying.
Wasn't what we'd like to see. Wasn't great. But I think everyone was like, okay, it's some things to take away, and we're in the match as opposed to we 3-0 down at halftime against Leipzig.
Yeah.
Some of that's the opponent, but you know what I'm saying. So, yeah, I was overall, I was fine with how we did in the first half.
Well, the second half would definitely have all the fireworks. We'll fast forward to 55th minute. Union would have a corner kick. All their set pieces are typically taken by Trimmel. Trimmel's their main guy. He's their captain. He takes a corner kick. It gets cleared out by Ceane. The ball kind of goes out real quick to, I think, Becker. Trimmel stays active in the play. No one kind of comes out to him, even though he's out there. He gets the ball. No one closes in on him quick enough. He gets the cross off. Near post, Friedrich gets the goal. For me, on that goal, a lot of things happened. Frederick Renault was caught cheating, trying to go into the center instead of holding on to his post. Nastasic was very slow in the play, was beaten by the other center back. And then thirdly, why was no one covering Trimmel?
It's really unfortunate that the goal was scored in this way, because I think Rana overall played very well. And it was this one moment where he made a decision that I just don't understand. Like you said, you said he was caught cheating. To me, it almost looked like, I don't know if he didn't see the near post run, or he just completely misjudged the flight of the ball and thought there was no way that he was going to make contact with it. But yeah, it looked like he was stepping forward to intercept the ball, in its flight where he thought it was going to be at that point. And if he had stayed home, he's basically exactly in position to make that save in terms of where that ball ultimately comes in. So, to me, that's a goal that's almost entirely the goalkeeper's fault. And it's unfortunate because, like I said, he played well overall. I thought he was decent in distribution, made a couple really, really big saves, and immediately looked like he belonged and was solid back there because of this Fairman injury. It's frustrating because I wanted to give him props. And then at the end of the day, it's kind of like, well, their goal is largely his fault.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a couple saves. There's probably 2 or 3 saves he made. I don't know if Fairman or Schubert would have made those saves. They were really great saves, I thought. But yeah, that's a big time. Like, what are you doing, buddy? Come on. And the one thing we didn't want to see is go down a goal, because what we've seen this season so far, and a good part of last season was we give up a goal, our heads go down. And to Jake's point, one of the biggest takeaways from the game was, when we went down, we didn't collapse. We didn't put our head down. We went down and we went back after them. Schalke was definitely trying to get back into the game, obviously with the 4-1-4-1 formation switch, taking off Ibisevic, bringing in Paciencia, and it didn't take him long. We talk about Skripski not being really involved in the game. That's, a downer for me, but he did show up in the 68th minute. He gets a long ball, gets a pass over the top, catches the volley, struck it really nicely, Jack, forced the goalkeeper to make a save, forced a corner kick. And that was big because that corner kick would end up going to Mascarell. Mascarell will cross it in, and Paciencia near post, just like Friedrich, gets the goal in, a big goal. You can see he was pumped up. The team was pumped up. I was like, here we go. This is what we're looking for, some fight in the team, and we finally saw some of that.
I was far more emotional when we scored that goal than I anticipated being. And, there weren't even that many fans in the stadium. There was, 300 people in the stadium. But I really felt like the emotion of that moment, and you could see how much it meant to the players. And it meant a lot to me personally watching it, just because, to the point of some of our viewers right now, that's what we've been saying is part of the issue is the first goal goes in, the heads drop, and there's sort of this air of inevitability to what's taking place on the field that the players seem, unable or even unwilling to try to overcome at times. And it's a polar opposite to what we used to praise in Tedesco's first season, where it was like, if we were losing, we'd find a way to get that goal and he got a draw. And if we were drawing, we would find a way to get that goal and grab that victory. We didn't have a lot of games where we were winning by 2 or 3 goals. It was, it was 1 goal difference in the scoreline all the time. But it was that kind of effort and that kind of belief that, the match isn't over until the final whistle blows, as much of a cliche as that is. And so, now that we've had the international break to come right into a match against, a solid opponent, have them take the lead and have us not entirely just capitulate, was truly great to see, and something that I think the team should be proud of, and something that hopefully we can build on. Because I think you and I would both expect that we're going to see some goals from our opposition, in the Revierderby. So we're going to have to be of that mindset if we're going to not have a pretty bad scoreline.
Yeah, and I think what we took away from this game was the game was fairly balanced. It was a very gritty game. It looked like 2 teams who were fighting tooth and nail. You look at the stats; it's fairly even. Shots 8-11 in favor of Union. Shots on target 4-6 in favor of Union. Possession, we had slightly more, but you get that when you're down a goal in the second half. So it was a pretty overall good game from that standpoint. We do earn our first point of the season. Now we're no longer in dead last. We're 1 point ahead of Mainz. Nothing to brag about because our goal differential is still like 10 worse than they are. So not a great place to be, but it is an improvement. That's what we're talking about. And that's what I've been trying to convey all day long, is that, no, it's not where we want to be, but it's a lot better than what we had been. And it's baby steps. The next week is going to be difficult. No doubt about it. You're playing a team that's, firing on all cylinders. Haaland scoring 1 million goals. Gio Reyna is playing really well. The team is playing real well. So how we do against them is going to be big. If we got to be disciplined, we got to be, we saw some of that in the game against Union, where we were tactically, we were able to hold our stuff, but they did get a lot of opportunities. Union did, and they're not Dortmund. They're not Bayern. They're not Leipzig. So that worries me some. We need to fix those things. And I know Baum is trying to work on that, because he even said so in his presser last week, where, I want to focus on the defense and build from that. So interesting. It's a big week.
This is going to come across as me trying to draw a conclusion that there's not nearly enough evidence or data for. But one other thing that I would say, if you're trying to take positives away from this, is that, despite the fact that we only have 2 goals through 4 matches, which is bad, both those goals have come from forwards in Ut and Paciencia. And that was a problem for us last season, where you were seeing, some of our highest scorers being Amin Harit, Suat Serdar. And those guys scoring those kind of goals, that's great for your team if you're also getting the production up top, and we weren't. So, the fact that the goals we have scored have come from the people that are supposed to be scoring them more often than not, I think is a positive sign as well. And it was nice to see Paciencia come in and have that kind of impact, because I thought he was pretty poor in the Leipzig game. Yep. And that was a nice bounce back performance from him.
Thorogood mentioned something on the telecast where he said, now that Paciencia has got his first goal, you should start him against Dortmund. And while I don't disagree with him for sure, what I've seen with a healthy Mark Uth, I saw the chemistry between him, Rahman, and Ibisevic was really good in that friendly. Granted, it's a friendly, I get it, but I think Ibisevic has that experience that Paciencia doesn't have, and a big game would be pivotal for me, I think, to start more so than come off the bench. Because no doubt about it, those are the 2 guys who are going to come on or off. One starts and the other one comes off the bench. For me personally, I would rather have Ibisevic start with his know-how and maybe try to find some kind of dirty goal early in the game, and then bring on Paciencia, who has a little bit more pace, a little bit more trickery that he can, maybe do something, exploit a tired Dortmund. I don't know. What are your thoughts on those 2 players? You're on mute, buddy.
It's a good call. My thoughts on those 2 players would be that no Katuchu. Even in the match today, where we saw Skripski and Benito Rahman and Ibisevic.
Frustrating, isn't it?
And several substitutions. No Ahmed Katuchu. And me saying that isn't, a criticism of the guys that have been out there, because I think when we're, as a team, creating as few opportunities as we are, it's very difficult to judge any of our forwards on the volume with which they're getting involved in the play. I think you can really only judge them on whatever few opportunities that they have. So I'm not criticizing Paciencia or Ud or Ibisevic for kind of being absent for long stretches of the match. I think that's something that like the midfield and the rest of the team has to work out. But it's still frustrating that we have this guy that we think is talented who's getting very few opportunities from David Wagner and now Manuel Baum as well, because we need to score goals. That's a fact. I mean, we're not scoring enough goals. There was an improvement defensively today in terms of fixing the leaky defensive issues that we've had, but we also need to score. And there's an argument to be made that we're not consistently putting some of our better offensive players in a position to score goals for us. So, but I like the fact overall that we're throwing new guys in and giving a variety of players an opportunity. I think that's a good thing. I think, every time you get a regime change in terms of the manager, it's a blank slate to some extent. And it's everyone has to kind of re-earn their spots. And there's, hopefully people are motivated right now and really trying. And I think that's only going to be a good thing. The more competition for places, it should hopefully raise the level of play from everybody in the team. So that's good to see.
And I agree with that. And though I don't think Katuchu is a winger by any stretch, I think he could be an improvement over Skripski on the right side at least. Though he's more of a central player, Harit, will certainly add a dimension to the team. I do want to see Ut play on the team on the starting lineup if he's healthy enough to do it. Now, how do you fit Ut with Harit and whomever else, Rahman? Rahman will probably be on the left wing, but where does Harit fit into this? Maybe he plays on the right side. Who knows? Or plays in the middle and play Ut in the right. I thought Ut has looked best for him when he's played second striker. We've talked about this before. That's his best role, but that's kind of Harit's best role too, right? Playing right behind the striker, playing in that the 10 role. So maybe we play with 2 10s. We did that in the second half against Union. That's an option. I do want to see both those players play for sure. We don't know how long Serdar's going to be out, and at this point, really, we should rest him because he's injury prone as it seems. Give him more time. Even if you think he's ready, give him another week or two just to make sure. But for me, at least, I don't know who I want in the derby for sure, but Ut and Harit have to be playing, I think, starting in that game.
Yeah, it's interesting. If we see what we saw in this match where you kind of have those double eights, or if you want to call them double 10s, whatever.
Yep.
I ideally then, and I know that Serdar's unhealthy, but ideally I think maybe you'd say you'd want Harit and Serdar to be those.
Sure. Yeah.
Those two guys. I think if you put Harit central, it makes it harder to get Bentaleb on the field as well.
Yeah. He's been playing better. He's playing better.
So, yeah, and I think all of us are still somewhat unconvinced that Harit can effectively play the winger position. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, but I still feel like he's better central when he's involved and is on the ball and can affect things on the dribble, quickly get by 1 or 2 guys and then spring a pass. So, yeah, I mean, I don't disagree, though. I wouldn't mind seeing Mark Ut back in the lineup, give him another chance if he's healthy. And, yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of exploring that can be done this early in the season with different shapes, with different personnel. And, it could still take us a few weeks before we really get a good picture of what might be the best combination of personnel and tactics.
And Gert made a good point of saying, Harit made a big difference in the second half. He did. He was more lively than what we had out there previously. And so, yeah, we got to find some way to put both those players out there. Because, like I said, yes, it was a test spiel, a friendly. But what we saw was that Baum was using Ut as a main focus in that game. And that could have been also because Harit was out. Maybe that's who he really wants in there. Who knows? But I think both of them in there could really add something. Ut has been our only goal scorer up until this game. So yeah, whatever we do, we got to figure it out. Get those 2 on there. I don't think Serdar's gonna be ready yet. I doubt Fairman is, but Renault is playing really well. Definitely no reason to take him out. And it's a huge test. It's a huge test against Dortmund. We know who they got. I mean, obviously, finding some way. I mean, one of the questions we're going to get to later is, defensively, whoever's back there with Sané, they need to figure out a way to stop Haaland. Or keep an eye on him. You're not going to be able to stop him. You just keep an eye on him and try to neutralize him as best you can. Whether that means help from Mascarell or somebody else, somebody's got to put a body on Reina as well. He's been lights out this season so far. We may see Jadon Sancho. Who knows what Dortmund's going to throw at us, and it's going to be high power, and we have to figure out a way to be disciplined and then counter on that, because pace is not going to be our friend. I think they probably outpace us in every position on that field. So we have to be smart about it, counter and quicker passes to your point earlier, because that's the only way. Because if we're just gonna be slow-footed about it, they're gonna tear us apart.
Dortmund's form early this season has been kind of interesting, though. I mean, I'm not optimistic about this match, given there's the overwhelming volume of attacking talent that they have, and talent that's significantly better than what we're working with. But despite a couple big wins, they've also lost to Augsburg, I believe,
2-0, right?
And something like that, and Bayern as well. So a few big wins, one close win, a couple losses. Like, it's not a dominant opening from Dortmund, and I think especially when you consider that most people would concede that in the derbies over the past 4 years or so, you would probably say, and potentially longer than that, you would say that Dortmund has been coming into those matches as the better team with a clear edge, and despite that, we've gotten some results against them.
Yeah.
So it's I hate those cliches, but in the derby, you never know, and Dortmund hasn't been super consistent. So, maybe we catch them. Who knows? We'll have to see. Yeah. But I agree. I agree. You have to keep an eye on Haaland, and you just got to be aware of the fact that he just commits to runs. I mean, some of what he does isn't particularly complex or brilliant. It's just that he, the ball turns over, and he attacks immediately and has conviction and makes his run and sticks with it. And if you're not, willing to run with him, and if you're not, in the right mindset to know that he's going to be coming at you the second the ball turns over, you're going to have a problem. But, if you just keep a body on him and realize that, somebody's job, and potentially most people's job, is going to have to just be being aware of where this guy is at all times. We'll see. Yeah. Make other people come up with the goals. Make Marco Reus be the hero. Make Giovanni Reina do something. Make all these other Jadon Sancho. For the talk of how great of a player he is. Make somebody else do it. Don't give them easy opportunities. I mean, there's a couple things that we saw in the derby in the second half of the season last year that were just like,
come on.
Wait, I mean, yeah, it's what we always say on this. At least what I always say on this podcast is, there's teams that are better than you, right? And they're great offensively, and they're probably going to break you down because they're that good. Make them break you down. Don't give cheap goals. Don't make it worse than it has to be.
Yeah. And I think what we need to do, at least with Haaland, I should say, is keep a body on him tight, because he has a marvelous shot. He's 2-footed. I mean, he's got a laser accuracy from wherever he's shooting from. So don't give him time. Do not give him. Put somebody. I don't care if you have to shadow him the whole game. Just do that and try to figure out the rest of it. I think that's a big thing with him. But yeah, but they're not indefensible. I mean, they had a tough game against Hoffenheim this weekend. Only beat them 1-0. And we've seen them. They haven't been, like you said, that even though they're up there in the standings. They had that loss against Augsburg. They're not unbeatable. Or they're beatable, I should say. So yeah, it can be done. We just have to have a much better performance than we saw in the Rückrunde last season, which was just pitiful coming out of the COVID start. So that's a big thing. And we mentioned earlier that the Ultras met with the team, and they're expecting a lot more, expecting not only the performance that they had against Union, but even a better one than that, because you need that against a team of Dortmund's caliber. And we knew this first five games were going to be a difficult run, Jack. We talked about, we flirted with the idea that it possibly could be 0-5. We're not going to get 0-5, but you still could have 4 losses. And
yeah, two of the 3 first matches for Manuel Baum are Leipzig and Dortmund. I mean, that's, even if he was the coach for 2 years already,
that'd be difficult.
And we've been playing well during that period of time, we would still say that these are 2 matches where we could, drop points. They're certainly not guaranteed. So, yeah, once again, I know it's the derby. There's pride involved. There's higher emotions. There's more investment than there would be in a typical match. Got to be prepared for the fact that it might not be particularly pretty, and that's just kind of where we are. It is going to be part of the natural process, and doesn't necessarily mean we're taking a step back already with Baum from the match we just saw with Union Berlin. It is still partially about the performance, which is what you've been saying consistently over the few weeks, is like, how does it look? Even if the result's not there, how do you come away from that match feeling? That could be a play at Dortmund, but I'm not particularly worried about what goes on in this one, and I'm kind of looking beyond it, if I'm being honest, which is a pretty insane thing to say about the Revierderby, but it's, I mean,
yeah.
I'm not as emotionally invested as I otherwise would because I understand where we are.
We just want to see an improve. I want to see an improvement. I want to see that we are taking those steps onto the next, right? We look better against Union. I want to see it better. We may not win the derby. I would love to win. I would love to win or get a draw, but I want to see a better performance than they did against Union. More heart, more. It's a freaking derby. I want to see that passion. That's what I'm going to be looking for. Like you said, I'm not going to be fully invested as I normally have been because the team has been so bad. But I want to see that fighting spirit, the malocher, the Derek Ray was talking about, the coal miner, mentality. This fight. I want to see fighting for loose balls, fighting for everything, hustle, kind of like we saw Rahman doing today and a couple other guys. But it has to be for the full 90. It has to be for the full 90, freaking 95 minutes. It has to be to have any kind of keep any kind of face after this game. So it's gonna be an interesting one, Jack. No doubt about it. Big week for us. This is typically the time of year where we're gonna go to like watch parties and stuff and set something up for the derby. But obviously under COVID, they're much different times and no watch parties, at least in person, that we're gonna be attending or anyone's gonna be attending in the States. So maybe a couple of cities here and there that might be doing it, but for the most part, we're gonna be doing this virtually, Jack. So big game Saturday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 p.m. your time Central. And 6:30, in German time. So it's going to be a big one, Jack. And if Doug's right here, he's saying, I know derby games are all about emotion. Hopefully we bring the emotion. I'm hoping that, Dortmund are overlooking this game and they're just like, hey, we got that win easily, and they're going to overlook it and make it more difficult for them. We'll see. It's a long way away.
And hopefully that demonstration from the Ultras today is going to actually be positive encouragement and not put a bunch of negative psychological pressure on this team, because I do think the team is in this somewhat fragile mental position that Manuel Baum is rapidly trying to, desperately trying to change and instill confidence. So part of me, I don't know exactly what was said, but part of me feels like, the team got a result today, took a step forward in the right direction, and that was kind of a positive. And then for that to be the match where the Ultras confront them, I don't know. I would have tried to be more. It depends on what the kind of the tone of it was, but hopefully that was a positive thing. And as Doug said, it's all about emotion. Hopefully they're fired up, ready to go, willing to put in, a full 90-minute shift and really fight for it, regardless of what the scoreline is at the end. Give the fans something to hold on to coming out of that match. Yeah,
from all indications, the Sport 1 journalist, and the name is escaping me at the moment, he made it seem like it was more of a peaceful type thing where they were just talking, but they're like, if you don't show up at the derby, you're going to see us in a more angry voices, as opposed to now we're more calm and relaxed outside the stadium. So, I don't know about the timing of it. I get why they did it, because we haven't seen great performances from the club in last year, probably more. We'll see. Sasha Rita said it was a definitely motivational thing. We'll see how the team takes it next week. We will know once the game starts how the team reacts to that. So, big game. So, we did ask our listeners if they had any questions or comments about the game. If you are in the chat, please let us know. We'll talk about it here on the air. Some of the questions I saw, Jack, first coming from Schalke, Argentina, and this is in Spanish, so I'm gonna translate it for you. So it says, with the return to Sané, he's been good. But who's gonna be his teammate? Who's gonna be his partner in the defense there? Is it gonna be Nastasic, Stambouli, or Kabak? And a follow up to that is from Schalke Costa Rica, saying, they're thinking Malek Tiao. He's young, he has a lot of passion. He wants to do better. He may be a good partner for Salif Sané. What do you think, Jack?
When it comes to Malik, I think he just hasn't gotten anywhere near the amount of minutes he would need to get for me to be able to just say, slot him in there and partner him with Sané. Maybe over the next season or two, we see him step into that role. It's possible. I'm not ruling it out. I don't think we've given enough of a sample size of him to be able to say that with any confidence. I don't think anyone's going to say that it can be Stambouli on the back of the performances that he's put in so far this season. He looks very much off the pace entirely and not a good option. I think when it comes to Matija Nastasic, you're talking about a guy that maybe has a little bit lower of a ceiling than Ozan Kabak, but has a potentially higher floor in terms of slightly more level-headed, generally more consistent. So I don't know. I think I agree that Sané is probably like the automatic lock. And then I think it's going to be a battle between Kabak and Nasic, when those two guys are available, who gets in there and partners with them.
It's kind of funny because we probably thought not too long ago that we thought Kabak was the main guy, and it would have been Sané or Nastasic or Stambouli coming in there. We agree that Sané has fantastic ability. He seems to be a leader now on the team. He can play all various positions, but he's pretty solid. He's fairly solid. He partners the Koulibaly with Senegal, so he's a really good player. So I agree with you. I think Sané is going to be the number one pick, no doubt about it. For me, spitting aside, I think I'm probably going to put Kabak just because he played fairly. He's one of the few bright spots of the club last season. Consistently trying to bring the game. He's a threat defensively, offensively as well. He's young. He's everything about him is I like. Stambouli, I agree with you 100%. He does. I don't want to see him on that pitch unless he's coming on a sub role and a midfielder. He's been too suspect this season, and I love Stambouli. But I think he brings more negativity than positivity to the club and to the team on the pitch, I should say, because there's so many unknowns with him. It's like, is he going to be able to stop this play? Is he going to get a yellow? We don't know. Nastasic, like you said, Nastasic brings a lot of he's what you would want, but it's a coin toss for me with him and Kabak, and I'm going to go slight with Kabak just because in a game, if it was a derby game, I would say for sure Kabak, because I think Nastasic is maybe a yellow card, red card waiting to happen. But I think you can't go wrong with either one. I think Sané has to be the number one pick overall when you talk about defensively. So yeah, I agree with you. I guess the long answer with you. So looking at some of the comments here, Doug Jackson says, "Yeah, today we gave a full 90. That hasn't happened until today." I agree about that. Well, for the most part, this is the best game we've played in a while in terms of putting pressure and looking somewhat competent. Joseph says, the Ultras did the right thing. They must bring the energy to the players and so they can feed off of that. And Doug agrees with that too as well. So yeah, a lot of people think that what the Ultras did is good, and we'll see. Hopefully it rubs off well on the team. And
yeah, I wasn't trying to pass judgment one way or the other. I was just saying, given the fragile mental state that this team appears to be in, I hope that they took that the right way.
I agree
and got the right message from that, rather than that maybe affecting their confidence. And I think the point that Doug makes here in the chat, which he says that the supporters haven't had their say during the games, is a fair point as well, because they haven't been in the stadium to actually voice that during the matches. So they've had far less of an opportunity than they typically might, and that's a fair point to keep in mind. So maybe they felt like they needed to do this and wanted to get this one word in before what I think we all agree is one of the two biggest matches of the year, which is the first edition of the Revierderby.
Yeah, and Joseph brings a good point. Hopefully they can safely attend at least the trainings, if nothing else, and chant. I think this week we're going to see whether they can or can't. The Ultras are going to be at the training grounds, at least as close as they can get the chant away, because we've seen that in the past, and I think they can do so safely. If we can allow 300 into the stadium, you could probably do 300, in the nearby around the field, I should say. So let's see. Joseph says, or Doug says, is there going to be a Revierderby Zoom? So we are talking with Schalke. We may be able to do it. If we do, we'll let you know as soon as possible, whether it's on Twitter or whatever. We'll find a way to let you know. We did one last year at the Rückrunde, so stay tuned for that. We don't know as of yet, but it could possibly happen. It's a very good possibility. Things are going to be more virtual these days than they are going to be in person. So if there's going to be a Zoom, we're going to have one. So stay tuned for that for sure. Let's see what other questions I had. Of course, my screen goes to sleep when this happened. Last question that I saw with Mascarell, this comes from Eric Houston on Twitter. With Mascarell taking the set pieces and Sané and the Nastasic coming forward, the team looks incredibly exposed. Can we get someone else practicing these, please? So I think there's two things here. First, Mascarell taking the set pieces, and then two, we're getting exposed with the big center backs coming up on the set pieces and then getting caught on the counters. What are your thoughts on both of those?
I think I heard James Thorogood say that he thought the decision for Mascarell to be taking some of these was strange, given that he's probably not the best taker of these on the team. I didn't think he was that bad today. I thought he was consistently at least getting it into the right areas. And we saw Can Bozdogan take one that didn't really get past the first man. Ochipka had at least one that was decent, so I didn't think he was bad in that regard. But I understand the point that's being made that if you're going to have Mascarell take those and bring up the center backs and everything, then some of your defensive players, are too high up the pitch, you might get exposed. I think that's usually when teams have some of the faster players take a step back to make sure they can cover that. Not something I'm overly worried about, but slightly strange that maybe we didn't see, Harit take one later in the match, or, Bentaleb when he was on the pitch, because those would be guys that you would think would be more natural for that kind of role.
Yeah, and it's not. Yeah, I agree with you. Muscarel didn't do badly, but I think what he differs from like Chipko or someone who's known for taking set pieces is he had the accuracy. So like in the second half, we had some opportunities through his set pieces. Like there's one in particular, and I don't remember when it was. It was certainly late in the game. He had a lofted pass. It went in the middle. I think Paciencia got it or Nastasic got it, but it had no power to it. Had no pace to it. So there's always so much he could do with that header. What I think Chipko or someone else who's more of a set piece specialist could do is bring that pace. So when a player gets their head on it, at least it has more chance of getting in the goal than a lofted pass, because his accuracy is there, no doubt about it. It wasn't doing bad. He was well intended. Obviously, we got a goal from it, but you know what? You have to see more pace on those kind of kicks, because that's when it gets really dangerous. You saw on the Trimmel on his crossing. I mean, he had a lot of pace. That's probably the reason why it went past Renault with such speed.
I guess what I would say is, if I had to choose between, being in the right area 100% of the time, but having the right pace 50% of the time, and as opposed to having the right pace 100% of the time with the right area 50% of the time, I'd probably choose the location of the cross over the pace. I'd rather have it, be getting past the first man consistently in an area where one of our guys can do something with it. Yeah, maybe there's times it doesn't have the pace on it for them to get as powerful and strong as a header as they would need to catch the goalkeeper wrong-footed. But yeah, I mean, I didn't see anything out there today that I was overly concerned about in terms of like why the hell is this guy taking these things? I mean, to change that immediately. I thought it was okay. Yeah. But it's also not something that I'm married to or locked into in any way.
Yeah, I was more like, why the hell is Katusha not coming off for Skripski, more than I was Muscarel off the set pieces. But I digress. Anything else? That's all the questions I saw, both on chat and on Twitter, Instagram, and all that, Facebook. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this up?
No, I'm good. I'm just glad that we finally got a result, and we did it in a comeback manner, which I think is also good for the psychology. So
yes.
A result, a goal, come from behind result, a couple good things to take from this one, and we go again next week.
Yeah, we go again Saturday. Big game for sure. Again, you haven't done the Schalke US newsletter, please sign up for that. Keep tuning in each week as we bring you the latest from the Royal Blues. We want to thank Schalke and all our followers for providing us tidbits for our podcast tonight. If there are any topics you would like us to discuss, just tweet us at SchalkeMerica. Jack, any special friends or shout outs we should do?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good too. I'm going to shout out to Cedric Zalmat. Jack, where can our followers find you on social media?
At JM Mangan, JMMangan on Twitter.
It's like music coming off there. Once again, I'm your host, Richard Kharman. You can find me on Twitter or anywhere on social media, really, at R_KHARMAN. Until the next pod comes, my friends, stay ready, and we'll be with you soon. Tschüss.